Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your trusted weather source here, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype. Here on your Monday, June 16th, 2025. Well, we got a lot to get into. We have some pretty busy weather here over the next several days when it comes to severe weather, kind of moving from the middle of the country and eventually making its way over toward the East Coast, really for the next 3 or 4 days. We'll break that down for you. We're also going to talk a little bit about the building heat we're anticipating. That's still in the cards, but I don't think we're going to get a heat dome that's just going to sit there in one place. In fact, it may kind of shift back and forth a little bit over the next couple of weeks, and we'll show you the latest on the long-range models on that. And of course, being in June, we got to give you the latest on the tropics as well. We'll give you an update on what's going on out there. Now, before we get going, first, I do want to say thank you and welcome aboard to any new subscribers here to the channel. And if you haven't subscribed just yet, if you could please help us out as we're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And if you have a weather-related question or if you want to leave a comment, please do. Leave it down below. Give me a thumbs up. It does help with the almighty YouTube algorithm. So we got plenty to get into, so let's get started. All right, my friends, let's go ahead and first take a look at yesterday's storm reports. We had some 152 of them yesterday. Not bad. It was pretty active out here along the foothills of the Rockies coming out into the plains up here. I had another little cluster over here into the mid-Atlantic as well, and you see some sporadic activity kind of going down toward Texas and into New Mexico. I'm expecting today's to be a little more robust, and I'll show you why here when we take a look at the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. Other thing that's going on right now is the fact we've got some rains falling in some areas that darn sure don't need it. Notice the flash flood watches here across portions of the Carolinas, Virginia, West Virginia, and Ohio sitting in here. Also across Missouri, Illinois, and Kentucky. And then these areas are also still looking at some pretty decent rains over the next several days. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the list from the excessive rain forecast going from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday over the next 3 days. And you can see that yellow area there, again, where those flash flood watches are, where they don't need it. West Virginia had some serious flooding yesterday, had a building collapse because of some heavy rains there yesterday. And we're going to see that again in the same zones across the mid-Atlantic, across North Carolina, back over to West Virginia. You see another little cluster back over here toward the west. That includes Illinois, Kentucky, and Indiana, obviously right where those flash flood watches are. And with the severe weather that's expected out here in the plains, you could rule out some excessive flooding here and some isolated locations there as well, as some pretty hefty thunderstorms are expected there for later today. Going into tomorrow, going into your Tuesday, we got a couple of clusters to watch for excessive rainfall here across Pennsylvania, back in toward Kentucky once again, and here across the middle of the country, we're talking about Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri, looking at a big bullseye there for your Tuesday. And then shifting into your day 3, you see it's mostly there across the Great Lakes, marginal risk here across the Michigan, stretching back in toward Missouri, and back over toward Ohio and Indiana that we're going to have to watch for your Wednesday. We're going to be looking at a large part of the country today that's going to have some sort of general thunderstorm threat here for today. But the real action is going to be with the storm system up here across the high plains. You're seeing the action already up there this morning here across areas of Minnesota and back into the Dakotas. And it'll be this area in here we're going to have to watch. We're going to have a couple of pockets of enhanced severe weather we're going to have to watch very closely to see how the storms materialize here, as we got a couple of rounds of severe weather kind of track. So let's go ahead and take a look at the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. We'll kind of highlight this again. We're looking at that enhanced zone here across Minnesota, and it is just a little bit of Wisconsin and heading a little bit over into South Dakota. And then we got another pocket here down into Nebraska we're going to have to watch here for today, for your Monday going into your Tuesday morning. Your day 2 outlook going into Tuesday, they'll shift it down here toward the south. And notice we got that enhanced pocket here down into Kansas and getting very close to Missouri. So kind of a kidney bean looking severe weather event here, stretching from Iowa and stretching back over toward Colorado going into your Tuesday, Wednesday. And then on your day 3 going to Wednesday, Thursday, going in here across areas of Michigan, stretching all the way back into Oklahoma as that system begins to drop down and begin to push off toward the east. And this will continue into your day 4 as well. In fact, when you look at your day 4 outlook here, we're looking at, again, that shifting on over here toward the areas of the mid-Atlantic. So from New Jersey, stretching back into the Carolinas. So the thing's going to shift on down and move in this general direction. So let's go ahead and take a look at the categorical breakdown here for your day 1. We'll look at first at the tornado risk here for today. Again, the highest is going to be up here toward the north. So we're talking about heading up toward areas of Minneapolis. That area is going to have to be under the gun. Mankato, Wilmer, St. Cloud, anywhere in this zone here, looking at a 5% risk of seeing a few isolated tornadoes, probably embedded with a squall line that may be moving through that area. And then you see the general 2% risk stretching back into Nebraska and back into Wyoming and into Montana. So that is our tornado risk for today. How about that wind threat? Obviously, that's going to be a little more concentrated. Notice we got the higher wind threat down here across Nebraska. That's in one of those hot pocket zones there for the enhanced area. So we had the enhanced area down in Nebraska for winds, and we had the enhanced area up here into areas of Minnesota because of tornadoes. So kind of two different functions there. Again, go looking at the wind threat here. North Plate is obviously going to be front and center in the middle of this. So we're talking winds of 60 to 70 miles per hour in this zone. But obviously we've got that yellow area there in the 15%. So 30 in the red and 15 in the yellow. Obviously the brown drops it down to about 5. And as far as the hail threat, well, guess what? That'll be up here across up toward Minnesota. So this will be up where the tornado threat is. Again, kind of running here across portions of Minnesota, stretching back in here toward getting down, right down near the Iowa border. But anywhere in this kind of shaded area right here, this will be their highest risk for running into some potential hailers in this zone. But the red area, obviously 30% being the highest level that we're going to see here for today. Now, as far as your day 2 outlook is concerned, let's go to the category breakdown for that. The tornado risk will shift down here toward the south. So we're looking at, again, areas of Kansas in here under the gun for the tornado threat into that zone. Wind threat will be in the same exact zone. Again, this kidney bean shaped looking severe weather event for tomorrow from Iowa, stretching back over toward Colorado and into Wyoming into this zone. And then our hail threat will be also bullseye kind of right there across the middle of Kansas. So needless to say, I think the storm chasers are going to be hanging out in Kansas here going into your Tuesday. All right, so take a look at our satellite imagery from our GOES 19 satellite. Again, we're going to be watching closely this system up here across the high plains. That'll be setting up some late day showers and thunderstorms, and obviously a few tornadoes possible there. We got another piece of energy that's going to be coming out of the Rockies. This will be coming into the Plain States going into Tuesday and into Tuesday night. We'll have to watch for that next round of severe weather. So we got a couple things we got to watch in here. Now, so far this morning, we are getting a few thunderstorms out there toward the eastern portions of Nebraska. You see a few rumbles of thunder, some pretty good downpours here near the Mason City area, for example. This area is under that slight risk for severe weather. The enhanced area is just off to their west. But again, this area will be under the gun, especially once we get that daytime heating to go here a little bit later today. Now, as we go and look at the big picture, we're looking at the NAM 3-kilometer, kind of the radar representation here, as we're going to be kind of watching to see how this thing's going to develop here as we go through the forecast period. So we kind of got this loop in here for you. Again, we got a couple things we're going to be watching here as we go from the next 60 hours, all right? So as this goes on through, I'm going to let you loop this thing on through again. We're watching that first piece of energy up here, boom. Okay, this is going up here for tonight. So we're watching this area specifically up here across Minnesota, obviously right through there. And then we're going to watch this area coming a little bit later. So again, those two enhanced zones that we're watching here for today as that moves on through. So we get that storms there first, and then we get the little cluster of storms there kind of coming into Nebraska. See it kind of firing off late there going into tonight. So we got to watch that zone here, again, kind of going into here. This is a little bit further south than what is showing on the enhanced area, but right now this is what the latest high resolution model is showing right now as this goes on through. So that's that first round. And then going into tomorrow, we're going to watch another cluster of storms kind of flare up here as another piece of energy is coming out. We've got another piece of energy here coming on out of this area, and we're going to get some more storms going to flare up there through Kansas going into Tuesday night. Okay, it'll be late in the day Tuesday, going into Tuesday night and Wednesday. So watch this thing really start firing up. Boom, really got fired up. Very good there going into Tuesday night. This is 9 o'clock at night, and you see some very robust thunderstorms through there, and that's that enhanced zone for your day 2 outlook. And then this will kind of roll on into areas of Missouri. It does weaken, though, as we go into overnight. Obviously, we lose that daytime heating, and this will push into areas of Missouri and push into Iowa as that little disturbance kind of rides up to the north there and heads up toward areas of Illinois and Wisconsin as we go into your Wednesday afternoon. Thus, that shift begins to move to the east as that disturbance begins to shift off to the east. Now, obviously, this time of year, when you get this kind of air mass and you're just kind of warm, you got those big thunderstorms, you got to be looking for those areas for some heavy rains, obviously. And we're going to continue to get rains in this zone. Any of those thunderstorms could pop up 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, unfortunately. But it looks like a big bullseye here across Kansas. Those are for those storms that we're expecting Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Obviously, we got the storms up here across areas of the Dakotas going back over to Minnesota. So some very high rain chances. And so local individual storms, 1 to 2 inches, but those bigger storms could get 3 to 5 inch plus, especially there across Kansas and portions of Minnesota going over the next couple of days. All right. Now, as we go ahead and look at our temperatures, one thing you're going to see, notice there's a lot of purple on this map here for your Monday afternoon. We got 90s going straight up here into the Dakotas. We even got 100-degree temperature there showing up there across southern Nebraska. So we got plenty of fuel to fuel these afternoon thunderstorms, not only for today, but going into tomorrow as well. Not bad across the Northeast. We're seeing temperatures mostly here in the 70s and 60s because of cloud and rainfall down here. Even the Southeast, mid-80s is not bad by June standards. A little hot in Florida into the 90s. Texas has got some 100-degree temperatures in here to watch, as well as the Southwest. There's a 111 right there, 110. So definitely dealing with the heat there. Let's go and look at your morning lows going into your Tuesday morning. We'll go check this out real quick as we go check out Saturday morning. A lot of temperatures here in the 70s here for a big portion of the country. A little cooler out in the west. You've seen that green. You know, you got some 40s and 50s out here. A little bit of here in the northeast, but again, a lot of the country pretty mild and pretty muggy here on your Tuesday morning going into the 17th. How about your afternoon highs on your Tuesday? Let's go check that out. We're going to chip away some of that purple because of that frontal system and the rain coming down. But look at a lot of Texas looking very hot there. 104 degrees right there near the Panhandle area. A lot of 90s in here. Obviously, the heat indices, when you factor in the wind, the humidity is going to make it feel even more miserable there. Still not bad here in the Northeast in the 70s. Southeast, 80s. Again, not bad because we've got a lot of rain chances here across the Ohio River Valley. But still some heat down in Florida. Got some 90s down here. Southeast Georgia looking at 90s. High Plains, not bad, sitting here in the 70s. So, again, we're kind of building the heat here as we go in towards your Tuesday. Now, let's go ahead and look at your morning lows going into your Wednesday morning. We'll go take that out there to a Wednesday morning. And again, we're cooling down here a little bit across the high plains here. Seeing a few more 50s showing up in here, even some 30s up in the Rockies up here in Colorado. Seeing some 50s and stuff. So we're kind of cooling things off here. Still very warm here in the east. And we've got 70s going up into New York State here for morning lows on Wednesday. So very warm and very muggy here across the eastern half of the United States as we go into Wednesday. And then the afternoon highs on Wednesday, we're seeing some 90s really start to increase here, even up toward the nation's capital on Wednesday, 93 degrees by 2 o'clock. That's pretty hot there. But we do have that frontal system and kind of cooling here behind this front. And temperatures, not bad, around 80 degrees up here in the high plains. And you're still dealing with some 90s down here toward Texas. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the big picture here. Again, we're kind of watching what's going on here. Remember what I said at the beginning? I said I did not think we're going to have a situation where we're going to have a big heat dome that's just going to kind of set up in place here. What we're probably going to see is an area of heat that's going to kind of shift and kind of meander back and forth, depending on how these little disturbances and these systems kind of coming in off the west coast here weaken that and kind of shift it to the east. You see it kind of weaken there a little bit. And then it kind of pulls back to the west here again, and then kind of moves into the center. So it's going to oscillate a little bit here. From day to day, as we're looking at a fairly active weather pattern here out on the west coast. That should keep the west coast with a little bit below normal temperatures, or even part of the west, really. And then toward the end of the model, it looks like we start to build the heat up again a little bit later. But I think it's going to oscillate a little bit from day to day. It will have these little disturbances that are going to ride on through. Now, here's one thing I want to point out. Like, for example, this little disturbance here going into Thursday of next week. If this thing holds true, we're going to have some very active severe weather. Now, we're only dealing with it a few days this week. Looks like we're going to have to deal with it again next week as well, as these little disturbances kind of pull out of the Rockies here and crawl across the high plains and across the Great Lakes there a little bit. So it looks like we're going to stay pretty busy with some additional severe weather days where basically these disturbances are kind of riding in here, riding it over the ridge, and then kind of going like this. So they'll active here in the plains, and then they'll kind of shift down here across where that jet stream flow is, and kind of where that's bumping up against that ridge there. We'll see those severe weather days shift throughout the week next week, just like we're seeing this week. So almost like a repeat and rinse setup there. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the big picture here. We're going to look at the rest of the week. We're focusing on your days 2 through 7. We already looked at the first 2 days, so we're going to talk about going from Wednesday and going forward here over the next 7 days, going into next Monday. So let's go ahead and take a look at that as we go and take a look at going in throughout the day on Monday. Look, we got this disturbance here in the middle of the country. This is that severe weather we're expecting here on Wednesday across Illinois, back in here toward Oklahoma. Got scattered storms here across the mid-Atlantic and into the southeast going into your Wednesday. That system begins to push off toward the north and east. You see those pretty heavy thunderstorms there across Michigan, back toward Tennessee and Arkansas. That moves up toward the north. So here's our frontal system right through here. And things kind of settling down a little bit behind it. So that'll be going to your Thursday. And then this kind of goes off the eastern seaboard on Thursday afternoon. So we're going to have to watch for some thunderstorms here from New York State down toward Wisconsin, down toward West Virginia, Wisconsin's getting some storms too, but West Virginia and back into the southeast. So this area, again, couldn't rule out some severe weather on Thursday as well as it's clearing the eastern seaboard. We showed you that slight risk there, especially down here across the mid-Atlantic going into Thursday. All right, that moves on out of here. And then things not looking bad for Friday. We got a little disturbance there across areas of Minnesota. You see that going up there to the north. So we're looking at that little disturbance up here, setting up some storms there going into your Friday. But it looks like we settle things down just a little bit. And then we're just building a lot of heat here across the southeast. You got a little disturbance here across the Great Lakes. Some unsettled weather here in the northwest. You notice some snow showing up on there, so a little cold core coming down here on the west coast. So that's really going to cool things down there on Saturday and Sunday across the Pacific Northwest. And then we'll see things not looking bad going into Saturday. Sunday's not looking bad as well. So it looks like the weekend's looking pretty good for a big part of the country, except for the areas of the Pacific Northwest. It's going to have that unsettled little upper level disturbance kind of rotting in there, going into Idaho and into Oregon and into Montana going into Saturday. All right, so this goes on forward here going into Sunday. Sunday's not looking too bad. Again, look at Sunday afternoon. Really, a lot of the country is looking pretty good on Sunday. Got some storms along the Gulf Coast, a little unsettled there in the Mountain region, a few showers in the Northeast, but really not looking too bad. Looks like a better looking weekend hit for a lot of big part of the country. And then going into your Monday here, going to your Monday afternoon, we got some storms here across the plains and in toward up toward Wisconsin. Going into your Monday afternoon, as we'll watch for that next disturbance kind of rolling on out of the Rockies there. And you've seen the storms erupting here across Wisconsin, Minnesota, and in toward Iowa. So this will be another severe weather going into next week. So as the next disturbance slides on out, we'll roll up some severe weather again for next week, and there'll be a few days we'll have to track next week, almost just like this week, almost identical, really. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about the rainfall here. Again, this is your 7-day outlook here. We're going to continue to stay dry out in the west. California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico looking very dry. Again, where that thunderstorm threat and the track is, that's where the heavier rains are going to be. On average, you get a thunderstorm, you're looking at 1 to 2 inches. But if you get one that's slow moving, or if it kind of trains over the same area, you may get upwards of 3 to 5 in some localized spots, especially across areas of Michigan. That's what the European is kind of showing through here. But looking at some pretty good rains here across areas of New York, down in toward Tennessee, Mississippi, the Gulf Coast. So again, just depends on where those thunderstorms develop here from day to day. All right, let's go take a look, wrap things up. We'll look at your climate outlook here. Again, this is kind of lining up with what we just showed you there. We got unsettled weather out of the west coast. We got the warm weather here in the east. And under this kind of setup, this is a very typical setup where we get the thunderstorms, severe weather that comes out in the plains and then kind of moves off toward the east as the weekends. You get those air masses kind of playing bumper cars with each other here. So as we go ahead and take a look at this, this is for your days going from the 21st to the 25th. So, okay, so we got that continuing, and then you go out to the 23rd to the 29th, almost to the end of June. Still looking at that general setup right there, where we've got the cooler weather here in the west, and looking at above normal temperatures, warmer here out in the east as we get ready to wrap up the month of June. Precipitation-wise, we're going to back the precipitation off briefly here in the east. I'll be honest with you, we could use a little bit of a break here, either near normal or below normal here on the east coast. Looking a little pocket out here across Nevada and Utah. A little wetter, obviously, here across the Pacific Northwest, obviously with that nice little onshore flow and that cold air, and that rain chances increasing there. And we're still getting rain chances there across portions of Texas and into the southwest, as we're getting a little bit of an early jump there on the monsoon season, I think a little bit. And that kind of holds true going into the 23rd to the 29th. So not overly high with the above normal precipitation, except for areas here across portions of Wisconsin and into Montana. And obviously a little dry out here across California, Utah, and into Nevada as we go deeper into the month of June. And finally, taking a quick look out in the tropics, we do have an area of disturbed weather off the eastern Pacific there, as we were showing an area showing about a 90% chance for development. This one could be pretty close to the Mexican coast, so we have to watch that closely and to see if any of that moisture may want to try to work its way into the U.S. But we're going to watch it closely. Right now, it would become Eric, as we had Delilah over the weekend. Still haven't had a big major hurricane just yet in the Pacific, but I know that's coming. Just give it a little more time. Looking right now at the satellite imagery out there, you see the cluster of storms kind of increasing there off the Central American coast, and we're going to continue to watch that very closely, as we should get a tropical storm here to form here very shortly. Now, looking at the big picture here in the Atlantic side, continuing to watch where we look for those hot zones in June, that being the Gulf of Mexico as well as the southeastern portion of the United States. Right now, looking quiet out there for the most part. In fact, the Hurricane Center is not anticipating any development over the next 7 days, so we continue to be quiet there. But you know, as we get deeper into the hurricane season, things will start to get a little more active out there. Now, right now, looking at the satellite picture, we're not even seeing any decent wave activity. Intertropical convergence zone is still sitting pretty quiet out here. We're still dealing with some dust out there in the Atlantic as well. So we'll continue to remain on the quiet side out there. But don't worry, we're going to keep watching this very, very closely as we go through the rest of your hurricane season. Make sure you stay apprised of what's going on out there throughout the year. All right, again, I want to thank everybody for checking out your update for this edition. Again, I appreciate y'all's feedback. If there's something specific you'd like to see in this, because it's your report, really not mine, it's really designed to help you guys out, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you'd like to see. And again, I'd appreciate you if you give me a subscribe. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you can, and hit that notification bell so you're alerted when I do these updates or whenever we do our live events. Those are always fun thing to do. All right, that's y'all's update for today. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next update. Till then, y'all have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.